welcome for Dean David Ward.
President Blanken, thank you all for giving me the opportunity to be here. I just want to set the record straight. 86.5% was, and I think the closest number, just to give you a sense, we were a good 30 percentage points perhaps ahead of our colleagues. Not that we're competitive. It really is a pleasure to be here, and I want to thank Dr. Blanken also because I am certain that she edited the introduction that was provided by her able Chief of Staff, Dr. Heaston, and left out some of the tidbits that would have entertained you, perhaps inappropriately, about my past. So I appreciate your editing work. I have the good fortune of having probably, well not probably, it is most definitely the best job. Certainly at Armstrong, certainly in Georgia, dare I say, far and wide. And let me share with you why it's so great. And there are actually a number of reasons. But probably the most important reason is that every day I get to come to work and play a very small part, but a small part nonetheless, in enabling students of all ages, young, old, all ethnicities, all economic backgrounds, all interests, enabling them to fulfill their potential. I mean, if you stop and think about that for a moment, it's an amazing thing that I get to do on a daily basis. Now, sometimes it's fraught with roadblocks for those students, but most often those roadblocks are overcome and the students succeed. And for me, there's truly nothing better than being involved in that opportunity. Now, I'm also going to share with you that something I did not share with Dr. Blanken when she interviewed me. I suspect she asked me what I thought of the future for the College of Health Professions at Armstrong. I suspect she asked me where did I see it going, and I said great things, words of wisdom. Foreseeing the future of healthcare education. What I can almost guarantee you I didn't say was that my #1 priority for the first year, and I am pleased to report that I think I was highly successful, if I do say so myself. Don't muck it up, okay? That was my priority for the first year. Now, you may sit there and say, you probably should have higher aspirations than not mucking it up. But let me share with you a little bit of why I think that was so important. First of all, one of the things, the accomplishments that Dr. Blanken shared with you, those are the accomplishments, frankly, of the people sitting in the back who have joined us. They promised that they would actually have me, but we'll have to wait and see. But I am joined by an incredible leadership team. Doctors Brooks, Streeter, Thompson, Gilbert, and Massini, who is unable to be here today. In their leadership, it is their leadership that has enabled Armstrong to produce the largest number of graduates in health professions than any other institution. It's their leadership that has empowered and created a faculty and staff who are so committed to the work that they do at Armstrong that they give back over and over and over to the institution and to their students. So, given where they set the bar, that team, to me, I was successful just not mucking it up. And as my family would be the first to tell you, I actually excel at mucking things up. So to have achieved that for 1 year, it is quite an accomplishment. The productivity of the faculty and staff is incredible. We graduate approximately 350 bachelor's-prepared students in the health professions every year, with another 100 or so graduate students. Now, numbers are important, but I'm gonna play a little game with you. I was gonna actually ask you to raise your hand, but I think I'd violate privacy rules. All right? But I want you to think in your mind for a second. Imagine that you did raise your hands. If anyone in your family, maybe you or an immediate family member, has had blood work done this past year, Maybe you had an x-ray, a sonogram, or a CT scan. By the way, my hand's up. Just throw that out there. Maybe you knew someone who saw a speech therapist, maybe a physical therapist. Maybe someone spent time in a hospital. How about a visit to a physician's office or a stay in a nursing home? One thing I can tell you is the reality is all of Savannah and most of Georgia is cared for by alumni of Armstrong. I would venture to say that if you were putting your hands up, and then I would maybe cut out 20% of you. The rest of you have been touched by a student who went through Armstrong. Touched for, cared by, and hopefully improved by a student who went through Armstrong. So I stand before you with the honor of representing the college, but the folks at the back table have served Georgia with incredible distinction, and I would argue incredible success. Now, that speaks to the quantity. Quantity is important, especially for those of us, who are aging every day, perhaps aging more than a day at a time, like myself. But what about the quality? And to speak to the quality, I really want to talk about I have two stories for you. The first, and I have her permission to use her name, is a student of ours, actually an alum. She graduated in May. Laura Berlin. Laura was a nursing student. This is the type of student that Armstrong is producing. Laura was a nursing student. As part of nursing school, you go through clinical rotations. You go through hospitals, so forth and so on. But in your last semester of education, you do an elective rotation. Well, Laura, her rotation was at a local high school here in Savannah, where she spent some time working with the school nurse. She was quick to realize that a different aspect of nursing. In fact, the school nurse was spending a great deal of time, and in this case, her own resources, to provide basic hygiene supplies to students who otherwise couldn't afford it. Students who didn't have toothbrushes, toothpaste, deodorant, soap. Basic hygiene as an aspect of healthcare. So what did Laura do? Laura was struck by this. She decided to spend her spring break by going around and generating resources. And over her spring break, she raised $3,500 that she donated to the school to outfit the school with personal hygiene products and reading glasses for students who needed glasses but didn't have the resources to acquire them. That's the type of student who goes beyond the clinical skill set that I can guarantee you she had. But to think beyond that and understand that healthcare is about caring for the whole community, caring for the individual and understanding the circumstances within which they live, the circumstances that may be impeding their personal health. Now I'm going to share another story with you, because one story is not good enough. All right? The second story is a bit more direct with me. I'm a scientist by training, and so we do experiments all the time. I needed to understand whether our students were actually being trained in a manner that produced quality care. So I decided to do an experiment of my own. One morning, I drove to work, and with all the power that I had, which was immense, by the way, I willed that the truck in front of me would blow a tire, swerve into the van in the other lane, which in turn would swerve in front of me, and I would collide with it at 50 miles per hour. All of this with the intent of living firsthand Armstrong graduates in the care that they might provide me. So I had the good fortune, after being extracted from my vehicle, to get new neckwear. That was lovely, okay? And be placed on a backboard, rolled into a moving vehicle. Well, it was still at the time, but then it was. And I arrived at the trauma center here in Savannah at the morning. It was a busy morning, okay? I was located in a hallway, a nice corner spot, okay? Got to see all the activity. As you can imagine, I'm not particularly shy, okay? I asked everyone who walked by, where'd you go get your training? Where'd you go to school? They thought I was like, worried. I wasn't worried, I just wanted to know. And sure enough, almost everyone I spoke to said, well, Armstrong, why? Oh, no reason. No reason. And I watched them. You know, I was fine, okay? A little sore, but I was fine. But I watched them care for the others. I watched them, I was right in front of a room that was occupied, I'm making an assumption here, by a woman who was up there in her years and experiencing some difficulty. And what I observed was the following. The staff would go in, the nursing staff predominantly would go in, see to her needs. They'd get one step out the door and the buzzer would ring again. They'd walk back in, see to her needs. They'd get one step out the door, the buzzer would ring. And she'd call out. What I observed was people who not once became frustrated, people who not once, you know, made the snide comment that perhaps I would have, okay? But walked in with a smile on their face and provided care every single instance. I observed Armstrong graduates who were working with some of society's not so welcome citizens. They came with personal escorts, some bracelets, and some ankle things, okay? Their freedom of movement was restricted, but the care they received, I literally observed, was caring and was top-notch. So I can sit here and tell you that the quality of the graduate coming out of Armstrong is just that, top-notch. Now, so what lies ahead for Armstrong? Because apparently the president has expectations for me, and that I'm not going to be able to just sort of hang around not mucking things up. So, here's what we aim to do. In case you haven't figured out in your own experiences, healthcare is very complex. It's enormously specialized at this point, okay? Because of that complexity of knowledge, it's increasingly specialized. What we have is professional silos. And if you think about it, we have professional silos at exactly the time we need more teamwork. That's a problem in healthcare. In fact, it's not a new problem. It dates back many, many years. Institute of Medicine issued a report way back in 2001 entitled Crossing the Quality Chasm. In this report, they laid a charge to healthcare providers and educators to figure out why we're making so many errors. And we are. We're making errors not because the individual is not trained appropriately, but we're making errors because the system is set up inappropriately. So, unfortunately, both education and clinical practice has been slow to respond to this call. Process problems remain a significant cause of avoidable errors. Technical skill is only part of becoming a true healthcare professional these days. So, a more recent move, we are stepping forward as a profession of educators. In 2011, the Interprofessional Education Collaborative convened an expert panel to set a core competencies for practice. Interprofessional, what a concept. We actually should be starting to have training students to work together on teams. It sounds so basic, yet if you think about the systems we have, most of our students go through their educational processes, learning their technical skills without interacting with others. For instance, take physicians. Most physicians in the country spent 4 years in medical school and never once learned with a nurse. Yet, they're going to walk into practice as a member of a team, perhaps in their minds, depends on who you ask, the leader of that team, okay? And they've never worked with that profession. So the core competencies have been set forward. Domain 1, value and ethics for interprofessional practice. Domain 2, roles and responsibilities. You got to know what the other players on the team do. Imagine it playing in a team sport where you don't know what everyone else's job is. That's what healthcare has done. Domain 3, interprofessional communication. Domain 4, teams and teamwork. These seem simple. Let me give you an example of how absurd some of our approaches have been. Anyone watch football this weekend? See, I'll let you raise your hands for that one, okay? Well, imagine learning how to play football where basically all the linemen get together on one field, all the receivers on another field, all the quarterbacks on another field. And the only time you actually work together is on game day. That's the only time you work together. That's what our educational system has achieved. The problem, of course, is game day is when you're sick. That's what's causing the errors. So we shouldn't be surprised when we see errors because our training isolates. So what are we doing about it? Well, at Armstrong, I can tell you what we're going to do. We are going to work hard to instill an educational process that crosses disciplinary boundaries so that our students are better prepared to leave us as team members, ready to work as teams. Now, we have some challenges. We have facilities that is 35 years old. We'll leave it there. Okay? The other part of the facilities that's important, I think it's very important to understand this. I am a big believer that the physical shapes that we occupy, the buildings that we occupy, shapes the experiences that we have. Well, our facilities were born in an era where we weren't encouraging working across disciplines. So we need facilities that enable interaction, that enable both the learning of the skills, but the how to work together as a team. The other challenge with our space, we turn away 400 qualified applicants every year. Let me say that again. We turn away more than we graduate. And they're qualified applicants. So we need partners. We need clinical partners. Our capacity issue is both our physical space, but it's also our ability to get them the clinical training and experience that they need. To that end, I will tell you what has Armstrong done. Well, we've gone further afield a little bit. With our nursing program, for instance, this fall, we partnered with Liberty Regional Medical Center to make them a primary home for 16 additional nursing students, our Liberty cohort. So that our incoming class this fall went from 80 nursing students to 96. Now, that 16 may not sound like a huge number, but the hope is that we continue to grow, continue to find partners that can provide them the clinical opportunities and increase that need. The other hope with that particular cohort is that we have folks, and in fact we do, from Liberty County, who want to see Hinesville as their future home. And we plant that seed where the needs really are, and the students can stay in Georgia, and they can stay and serve the populations and the communities that they grew up with. Now, we also have some challenges with developing team-based clinical experiences. Literally, the gold standard would be to send out a team of students. We've got to work with our providers, and we have some great providers here in Savannah. We're very fortunate in that regard. In the end, the college is firmly committed to achieving our new mission. And we have a new mission. We adopted a new mission this year. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. And that is our goal. Our mission is to improve the health and wellness of our culturally diverse communities by educating students to become team-oriented, evidence-focused, and compassionate healthcare professionals. I hope, that's my challenge, is to achieve that. I hope that working with all of you, with the community of Savannah, with the region at large, we can work together. I need your information. So part of this is a solicitation. I need your information, your feedback, your experiences with our students, so that I know, are we producing students who are qualified, who are compassionate, who are team-based? We have a focus on doing so. It's going to take us a little while to get where I think we can. But I think in the end, what we will do is produce students who literally, and I mean this, literally improve the health care that all of you receive. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions that you might have. I want to thank you for the opportunity to do, as my wife says, fluff the fanning of the College of Health Professions and Armstrong Atlantic State University. Thank you. Questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.